Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So, Hunter Biden may be going to jail. Yet to be seen. Um, Alex Jones is an update on him. There's a thing I want to do about Trump and the evangelicals, and Jojo Magoo had another complete glitch out. And so I want to start here with Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden trial, and I want to get into some comments at the end of this thing. Hunter Biden trial highlights president's son found guilty on all charges in federal gun case. Here's what this guy has to say about it.
President Biden's son Hunter, with a verdict apparently reached in his federal criminal trial. We're moments away from learning what that verdict will be. No cameras are allowed in this federal court, but we have reporters inside who will tell us the results any moment now.
He's guilty, dude. Check out that forehead. Like, that's quality forehead there.
President's son pleaded not guilty to 3 charges tied to the possession of a gun while
guilty. He's guilty. Joe Biden reacts to son Hunter Biden's guilty verdict on gun charges. We will continue to respect the judicial process as his son considers appeal. So he's not going to pardon him, right? And I want to get through this stuff first here, and then do a little bit of a voiceover about it. But like, remember that Joe doesn't want to pardon him. Hunter Biden, guilty of felony gun charges, faces 25 years in prison. So think about that, right? That I think that each one of these charges, I guess they have it broken down here maybe somewhere, but he's guilty on 3 counts, and collectively he could end up serving 25 years in prison, which seems extreme. So he made a false statement in the purchase of a firearm, making a false statement related to information required to be kept on federally licensed firearms dealer, in possession of a firearm by an unlawful user or an addict to a controlled substance. And so all of those things are crimes, right? He lied about, his status as an addicted person, whatever it was that he lied about to get the firearm. And then he carried the firearm, and he was unsafe with it, right? I mean, there was he banged his brother's widow. His brother died, and then he dated his brother's widow for a couple of years, and she said it was like the worst time of her life, and she was embarrassed by it. And he was getting all suicidal, so she took his handgun and threw it in a trash can outside of right next to a high school, and a homeless guy found it, and Secret Service was investigating it. So he was unsafe with handguns, but nobody died, right? So 25 years in prison seems extreme. And again, I'm not a Hunter Biden fan, and we're going to get into this with Alex Jones as well. What with this extreme, maximum penalties? And again, he deserves something. But do you think he deserved 25 years for those things? I mean, let's say it was one of Trump's kids or whoever it was, somebody that you like. You think that the person deserved 25 years? No, that's over the top. Hunter Biden kept drug gear at Joe's VA home and slept with members of Amoeba Group, says London Roberts. So London is the stripper from Arkansas. So her real name is London, but her stage name was Dallas, right? So I often said he impregnated a stripper named Dallas in New York City who was really from Arkansas, right? And the president's son was a crackhead, and he impregnated her and had no memory of it because he was smoking crack. And, he didn't want to pay child support, didn't want to acknowledge the baby, tried to keep it from the press before the election. The press still didn't cover it. And so this is what she had to say here.
Have you ever heard from either President Biden or the First Lady directly?
No.
Not a phone call or a letter or anything?
No.
Do you find that surprising?
No. No, I don't really. I feel like that's something that, they've waited for Hunter to step up.
And if he's
Hunter never steps up unless he's trying to get some crack.
watching this interview, what would you say to President Biden about potentially meeting Navy at some stage?
Navy. And she named her daughter Navy Biden.
That door is always open.
Bet it is. Her door is always open.
Always has been and always will be.
Look at that. She never closes her door.
Has Hunter ever met his daughter?
No, not in person. They've created a relationship, been building a relationship through Zoom.
Exactly. The best kind of father-daughter relationships are on Zoom.
And Hunter was required to call one.
The best father and daughter relationships are when the father's legally required
once a month or something like that.
To call on Zoom once a month.
To Navy gets to pick out one of his paintings, and that's how they would start building a relationship. But Hunter,
because he's an excellent artiste. I mean, that's one painting they won't be able to launder Monday with.
Went above and beyond to not only call her once a month, but once they started building a relationship, he's wanted to call weekly.
Oh, no way. This guy, I mean, he was required to call once a month, but not this guy. He calls weekly. I mean, when he's not doing his money laundering painting gig or working for a gas company but never showing up for work and smoking crack, he has time to call his stripper baby, his stripper crack baby.
Or sometimes a couple times a week just to talk to her. She goes into surgery. He wants to Zoom and talk.
Why? She's like 5 years old. Why is she going into surgery? She makes it sound like it's a regular occurrence.
To her, after he's calling to check on her at different times and things like that.
But you actually did consider taking your own life at one stage?
Was that during sex with Hunter? or shortly thereafter?
Yes. I would feel that after the pregnancy, would it be better for my daughter and for Hunter and everyone else if I wasn't here?
You mean that the daughter would go be raised by Hunter and the Bidens? No, it wouldn't be better. I don't know what kind of person you are. I don't know what kind of mother you are. But I know that daughter being raised by the Bidens would not be better. And, I don't think there's too many circumstances. I mean, financially, sure, but God knows what she would undergo with that creepy family. And her father would be this horrible crack addict, just nightmare, immoral person.
Because it seemed like a scandal and a burden is what I felt like at those times.
Is there any possibility of you appearing as a witness? It's been reported you may do.
Yes.
Yeah, she's not going to. So that's Dallas, London stripper, New York stripper, Arkansas-born Hunter Biden baby mama. So she wrote a book called Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. And she has all the dope on Hunter. And so she'll make some coin for that book, I'm sure. So before we go into the voiceover about Hunter and this thing, I want to show you Jojo Magoo. So this is Juneteenth, the celebration of the last slavery state. Was that it? When Texas stopped, when the last slave was set free, I think. And it's called Juneteenth, but I think it's supposed to be, wasn't it supposed to be on the 19th? Or I'm not sure what date it is. But it's Juneteenth. And this is your clueless president, right? Listen to this music. Okay, so check out this dude over here. And this is Dougie Fresh. Dougie Fresh is pretty much the most uncool person in the world. And he's got more rhythm and more, zing. Look at how clueless, he's just staring off. We'll go through this a couple times. Is he taking a crap in his pants? What's happened to him? Kamala is pretty uncool herself. But she's at least making an effort to dance. I mean, even what George W. Bush did, you ever see him dance, is better than just staring out. This guy's unfit for anything, right? People should see this video and go, okay, he can't be president. He shouldn't be president now. I mean, she's loving it because she knows like this guy ain't going to make it another 4 years. This guy's this goofy smile, like he doesn't know what to do. He can't dance, and he just looks like completely uncomfortable. So, like, the guy wants to fist bump him. So this guy's trying to help him out. Like, he knows the guy's tight as a frickin', I mean, he's just, like, glitching out. So this guy's throwing him a frickin' bone. And Joe Biden, so he goes up like this, and this guy thinks he's going to fist bump. And Joe Biden does to touch his face. And I thought he did only because of mask, but he actually did before mask. So he does his face thing. And then he realizes, oh, the guy's going to fist bump me. And now, oh my God, it's so bad. Like, it's so bad. It's sort of musical, but like, he's just not getting it, right? Even Dougie Fresh is making an effort to do some uncool white dude dancing. He's just staring off into space, like he's just gone, like he's not there. Like, this should be the end of his political career, right? This should be the end of his political career. The guy just can't freaking do it, right? I mean, he's just a nightmare. Like, everyone else is dancing and having a good time. You knew this was going to happen because it happened before. This guy over here is, rocking a dress, Dougie Fresh, and, look, they just did a thing. Him and Kamala, watch. I love nobody but you. Watch. She does her heart, and she did this. Watch, she's doing her thing, and she's going to do a heart. And they you, and they point to each other. In retrospect, it's just Dougie Fresh pointing at her, and she's just doing her own thing. The Kamala knee pads Harris, she's been around the block, and Dougie Fresh is smitten with her, and she's like doing her own thing. And so, like, they'd look goofy if this guy wasn't doing this, right? I mean, this guy looks pretty uncomfortable himself, and Kamala kind of sucks at it. But, like, there's just no match for this freaking senile MNF. He's just gone. And, like, you can't do this. Like, this is the guy, you roll Grandpa out, and everybody humors him. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, giving him, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, like, make sure he doesn't eat too much, and he doesn't, make sure he doesn't crap his pants or whatever it is. Everyone's like, hey, Grandpa, it's like freaking, hey, Jojo, hey, how are you? Hey, like, just humoring him. He's, like, completely gone. So let's go back to the Hunter thing. Now, he filled out 2 forms wrong, and then he carried a handgun illegally. There's a guy, Plexico Burris, and New York City has, like, the worst gun laws. I mean, they're the strictest. Plexico Burris brought a handgun he tucked it in his sweatpants in a nightclub, and he got drunk. He was a famous football player for the Giants, and then I think he played for the Jets afterwards. After this, after he went to prison. And he discharged his illegal firearm. It's like he didn't have a license for it. It was like some, whatever it was, he didn't have a right to carry it, and just all of it, and he fired it. And he shot himself in the leg, which should have been punishment enough because, he's a professional football player. But he did 3 years in prison, I think. Maybe he had a maximum of 5. And he discharged the gun, which is more severe than anything Hunter Biden did. And I thought that was excessive, right? Again, it's New York City and they have their rules. But, no one else got hurt. And, maybe probation. The guy was shot himself, right? Like, he already was kind of punished by, who knows? Like, they don't take that into consideration. But Hunter Biden, he only filled out a couple of forms wrong, lied about it, purchased a handgun, had a handgun illegally, and carried it. And so, yeah, he deserves the maybe a couple of years in prison for that. It's less than what Plexico Burris deserved. But, he's getting 25 years. And Joe Biden is saying he wants to, back the judicial process because his whole shtick is that Trump wants to pardon people. Trump wants to, ignore the law, right? He wants to, run as a guy who lives and die. He lives with these verdicts, right? And so he isn't going to pardon his son. And what kind of dad doesn't pardon his son? And he's going to die, right? His dad, Biden's going to die. And, the son, they had this scandal of the son's laptop, which had all these bad pictures on it. And the media and the FBI and even the Trump's Justice Department, Bill Barr or whatever his name was, Bill Barr, I guess, and they covered it up. They all, even a Republican, covered it up for Hunter, and there was all these bombshell allegations and things in there, or stories, and had that broke, there's no way that they could have claimed that Joe Biden was going to win the White House. But Trump didn't even go after him sufficiently in the debates about it, right? He called it the laptop from hell, but only to his. He didn't do it when he was, whatever he was. I mean, he might have said it in the debate, but he just didn't do a good job of getting that out there in the debate. And of course, it turned out that the laptop was his. They never denied it was his, and they started suing people for using the images like a copyright, like these things. And so there's all that. It's just an absolute mess, right? And it's been a mess all along. And there's no way that Joe didn't benefit from Hunter's. Like, they wouldn't have given Hunter this money. They wouldn't have bought his paintings for some millions of dollars worth of art he sold. Like, he was never an artist, and then he was an artist. Somehow he's selling millions of dollars of paintings, right? Like, that's totally suspect. But then he got jobs as a gas executive in the Ukraine. Of course, we know what's happened in the Ukraine. And Joe Biden was in charge of $1 billion of federal money, which he threatened to withhold. At the same time, his son was working for this company that a prosecutor was going after. And Joe Biden said, if that prosecutor isn't fired, we're not going to give you the $1 billion, right? And then, of course, everything's happened in the war there, the Ukraine, since then. And so he had ties with China as well. And there was a business partner, Tony Bobulinski, that interviewed with Tucker Carlson. And again, this is official story. Maybe it's all just a show. Who knows? Who cares? But this is the official story. And why would these companies pay this crackhead to work for them and never show up for work, not even go to the country? I mean, he didn't even go to the Ukraine once, and he never went to work one day. Why would they give him money other than they were getting access or something from Joe Biden, right? They were buying access from Joe Biden. They didn't pay him millions of dollars in salary and not get anything from him. And it wasn't his brilliance he wasn't the job he was doing for them. So Joe Biden was involved in that. And then Joe Biden has all these properties and, all these things that he shouldn't have. So he's gotten money from somewhere. Like his earnings that he earned as a senator, vice president, and now as president doesn't account for the 3 houses he has and all the other things, and all the wealth that he has, right? And so he's getting he's getting payoffs from somewhere, right? All these politicians are. And one of the ways was to funnel the money through Hunter and Joe Biden's brother, Hunter's uncle. And so that's all known, and yet he's going to let Hunter languish in jail, like for years, when he was benefiting from Hunter's scams, right? Just for political appearances, because he doesn't want to look like Trump. I mean, pardon your son, you piece of shit, right? Like it's just... Like, who wouldn't pardon their kid especially if he gets a sentence of more than 5 or 10 years, because that's ridiculous, right? Like, maybe, you can wait a little while and then commute a sentence, but the guy should not go to jail for 25 years. As much as Hunter's a scumbag, 25 years is what you get for manslaughter or murder or something. It's just excessive, like these huge, big dollar amounts in these slander cases. We'll get to Alex Jones in a moment. And so, I mean, it's just... it's absolute mess, the whole thing. Okay, it says Gaza's health minister says 274 Palestinians, that's some dyslexic stuff right there. 274 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli raid that rescued 4 hostages. So I saw this raid, and they were talking it up on New York Post and all these other places. And if they killed this many people to rescue this many people, this many people wasn't all bad guys, right? Just saying. Biden meets with Zelensky in Paris, apologized and delay for U.S. weapons that let Russia make gains. That war is over. I mean, it's a punishment to the Ukrainian people at this point. Ex-lover of Haley's tragic tale exposes the rotten core of the Biden family. Here it says, a very Delaware tragedy played out at the Wilmington Thursday. Haley Biden testified to the prosecution at her former lover Hunter Biden's felony trial. The president's widowed daughter-in-law this is I should have put this earlier. The president's widowed daughter-in-law was supposed to become the first lady of Delaware, maybe the first lady of the United States, because of her, the good son, right, the one that wasn't Hunter, that had been groomed, Bo, right, but Joseph Robinette Bo Biden, his middle name was Robinette. Like, they all got weird names. Like, a couple of them have like female names. Joseph Robinette Bo Biden III died the third. There, you mean there was a Joseph Robinette Bo Biden the second and first, and that isn't even. I guess that's is that Joe Biden's middle name, Robinette? Maybe. Died in 2015 of brain cancer, age 46, leaving Haley bereft and dashing Joe Biden's dream that his firstborn golden child political career as Delaware Attorney General would soar to the heights that he himself would reach 5 years later. She says here about dating Hunter Biden, I regret that time. It was a terrible experience I went through, and I'm embarrassed and ashamed. I regret that time of my life. So she smokes crack cocaine. She testified that it was Hunter who introduced her to crack cocaine in 2015 and 2016, soon after they began a romantic relationship. So this is the thing about his gun. She had been clean for 2 months in October 23, 2018, when she threw his new Colt Cobra handgun in an open trash can outside the family's neighborhood gourmet grocery store, where it was scooped up by a man scavenging for recyclables and went missing for 6 days, triggering a police operation to retrieve it. And it was across the street from like a high school. So now Hunter is standing trial as a consequence, with prosecutors alleging he lied about his drug addiction on federal background check when he bought the gun. Do you want me to relapse? Haley asked Hunter as he remonstrated with her for moving the gun out of his unlocked truck. It was one of a series of text messages from Hunter, abandoned laptop that were shown to the jury to illustrate the deterioration of their relationship. For a long time, texted Hunter in response. So just to make this clear, she asked him, do you want me to relapse? And he said yes for a long time. He wanted her to relapse because he's like that, right? So she was gotten clean. She's a mom and, all these things. And she got clean because he got her hooked on crack. And then he was, doing things that were encouraging her to get back on the crack, because he's a good boyfriend like that, and a good brother-in-law, all those things. I played a tape conversation between them. It was an argument, and it was bad. Like, he's just, he's a crack addict, and he's a Biden, and so so that was her. This is the person here. This is the woman who was dating Hunter Biden after his brother died. Sandy Hook families accused Alex Jones of erratic behavior ahead of bankruptcy hearing, and right after that, this came out. Alex Jones allowed to liquidate his assets to pay debt in Sandy Hook defamation verdict. Judge rules. A federal judge considered the InfoWars founder's request to liquidate his personal assets to help pay off a $1.5 billion he owes a defamation verdicts to these families. A federal bankruptcy judge on Friday granted conspiracy theorist Alex Jones' request to convert his bankruptcy filing into a liquidation of his personal assets as the InfoWars founder edges closer to losing his media company after defeats in defamation lawsuits 2 years ago. Bankruptcy Judge Christopher Lopez of the Southern District of Texas ruled that an interim trustee will be appointed to first help guide the process from a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing and a Chapter 7 liquidation, which permits the trustee to oversee and sell Jones' assets. Jones' lawyer Vicky Driver told Lopez that there is money that can then go to the trustee in the form of the sale of Jones's $2.8 million Texas ranch. In a filing ahead of Friday's hearing, families of the victim of Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting had urged Lopez to install a permanent trustee who could safeguard assets and further prevent further value destruction, as Jones must pay off a hefty debt he owes them in defamation verdicts. The families in the filing also accused Jones of erratic behavior over the past weeks, noting comments he made on his show, which I'll show you, claiming he has no assets other than the money he can make from selling nutritional supplements. He has specifically told his listeners to continue buying the products from a website affiliated with his father, David Jones, a dentist who is known as Dr. Jones, according to the filing. Now I can show you that piece because I have it as a meme because I mocked him about it. And the families accused Jones of trying to divert assets from media company Free Speech Systems to support his future business operations instead. Jones' flagrant and repeated attempts to funnel property of the FSS estate to his unaffiliated entity owned by his father, while using the InfoWars brand name and infrastructure to do so, is intentionally value destruction. And so families who sued Jones won lawsuits in Connecticut and Texas and were collectively awarded $1.5 billion in damages after they claimed he defamed them and inflicted emotional distress by repeatedly suggesting on his show that the Sandy Hook massacre was a hoax. A gunman killed 20 first-grade children and 6 adults at the school in Newton, Connecticut on December 14, 2012. At his trial in Texas in 2020, Jones generally blamed corporate media for twisting his words and misportraying him, but didn't specify how. Jones has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection that year, a move that lawyers for the plaintiffs criticize as a mover to avoid paying the debt. A judge ruled that last year that Jones, who had said in court document that he has about $9 million in personal assets, can't use bankruptcy to wipe out the legal judgments. So, this goes on from there. Let me show you the clip here of what he said.
Percent will buy a goddamn tube of toothpaste or or incredible products we've got. Go to drjonesnaturals.com. I'm not bitching. I'm like, you want a revolution, man. You want victory. You want fucking war against fucking terrorists. You fucking got people that are ready to fight, man. I mean, I'm fucking completely war-driven against these people. I've got my earpiece out. I am completely...
Only 1% of my viewers are willing to buy my products. You want effing war? You want to fight this tyrannists? You want to fight them, these MNFers? You want to fight them? You got to buy my products. Buy my MNF products. Buy those products. I need those products sold. I knocked out my freaking earpiece. I hit my head so hard trying to sell my products. I mean, fight tyranny.
So yeah, I didn't talk about this when I made the video, but I knew he was going to get in trouble for this because he is now running a shill corporation with his dad, where he's going to sell his crappy products through his dad, and he'll somehow, whatever, reap the benefits of that. His dad will, and he's advertising it on promoting it on his platform. And I knew they'd have a problem with that, right? Because like he's doing it publicly. Like there's all this stuff that he does that just makes no sense because, it's, other than him being a shill, it just makes the situation worse, right? Of course they're going to call him out on that, right? So there's that. So this goes along with the Hunter Biden going to jail for 25 years. And again, he hasn't been sentenced yet. But there seems to be these over-the-top awards and these defamation lawsuits. Trump, it was $92 million for that woman that he allegedly defamed. And Rudy Giuliani was $148 for defaming a Georgia election worker, right? $148 million in damages. Now, Rudy Giuliani is already kind of broke. Trump didn't pay him. He doesn't have close to that kind of money. Trump is the only one who has the amount of resources to pay the suit. Now, for Trump, the woman accused him of R-ing her, right? We all know about that. And, the story seemed to be fabricated, and it came out. There's all this stuff about it in terms of Trumpers' story and, the people that, are on Trump's side. But Trump was never convicted of the crime. And so what he said about her may or may not even be true because, Trump isn't considered guilty in what happened, right? In fact, I think he was ruled innocent. But she won the civil suit against him for defamation for $92 million. And that's an extreme judgment. And because just the things that he said. Now, Rudy Giuliani said that this woman, Ruby Freeman, and Wandra Shea Moss were cheating in the election. And apparently they weren't. So that was, I don't know. Familiar with the, apparently that's what they're ruling, that they weren't, right? But he accused them of, being, doing shady things with the voting system, right? Now, 148 million for that. Now let's go to the Alex Jones thing, 1.5 billion dollars. And so, what Alex Jones did was he called these people crisis actors and said that the thing was a hoax and all these things, which lots of people believed and said, right? And so, but Alex Jones doing it somehow was worse than everybody else saying it, right? Like how many people said the exact same thing. I saw many videos and, I didn't like commenting on the thing because if it was true, whatever happened, right? Whatever we believed about these events that happened, if these events were true, if they were what they said they were, then you look like a horrible person by saying things about it, right? And to people who believed they were true, you came off as just, insensitive. I just thought it was a bad look for the truth community because, I mean, it's just something where, how you appear to other people, how the truth community appear to other people by calling people crisis actors and things that are, viewed by many people as horrific victims. I mean, they've lost children, right? And so it's pretty savage to say those things. And especially if you don't have the proof or whatever it is, right? But in terms of it being worth $1.5 billion in damages, and so, like when you're talking about a defamation suit, it's like, let's say somebody makes something up about a famous actor. And this happens all the time in the internet. Like people slander people all the time. Like think about all the people that have called Tom Hanks a pedo, right? And so let's say Tom Hanks was canceled for these accusations. Somebody made accusations against Tom Hanks that turned out to be covered by mainstream media. And it was believed. And so then Tom Hanks lost $60 million in future movie deals, right? Things like that happened to Alec Baldwin, for example, right? Alec Baldwin had so many, projects lined up. Of course, he's sort of a has-been. But if you lost money because you're canceled for something, and it turns out it wasn't true, the accusations and things that were said about you weren't true, and you were hurt financially, you might recoup some of that money in a judgment. But the person you're suing has to have that money, or it's useless to tag somebody with $1.5 billion is ridiculous, right? And so in terms of these people, these Sandy Hook people, their kids, in terms of the official story, were killed. And what's worse than that, right? Like certainly not these words from Alex Jones, not these accusations. And so maybe it's worth a couple $100,000 per people, per person, whatever it might be. Something reasonable that Alex Jones could pony up, right? And of course, Alex Jones is a shill, so none of this stuff's believable. Because he put on a ridiculous defense, and he did all these types of things that were, that just made it worse, right? And, in his divorce hearings, because he went through a divorce that was very contentious, and his ex-wife came out and said all these things, and his lawyer said that he was a performance artist, which he is. Alex Jones has all these things. I didn't mention in the video that people think that he got Chris Cooper killed. I think this guy's name's Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper was being arrested for something, federal charges, and he was, he had a shootout with, I don't know, I'm not all that familiar with the guy. But people say that Alex Jones stole his whole persona. That was a guy who was in Texas and, kind of a truther or whatever it is. But Alex Jones is, of course, we know is a known controlled asset and a shill. But it's an extreme judgment. Like it should be something that, you pull up, it should be appealed, and, instead of paying or agreeing to something like that, right, $1.5 billion, Alex Jones should fight this thing and make a reasonable judgment. Because let's say Alex Jones is actually guilty of some sort of defamation. What's the damages that are done to those families? Like, what's, the people that live, they live in Connecticut. Like, how many people in Connecticut believe Alex Jones? How many people are believing in this, or they're saying that people harassed them, right? But exactly what is the damages? How have they suffered? How is their suffering worth $1.5 billion when they've lost children? Like when you lose children, you don't care about anything else, right? Like nothing that somebody says is going to be as bad as losing your child. And so, I mean, it's an extraordinary ruling, and the guy doesn't have the money. And it isn't like those people lost out on jobs. How were they hurt? How was Alex Jones' words hurt them? Like, what about Alex Jones, what he said, affect them negatively, right? In terms of their losing the availability, what money did they lose out on? Like I said, so this is what like these defamation suits are about, like how they actually hurt somebody. Not that they hurt the family, they're not hurt their feelings or like psychological suffering. Psychological suffering is worth so much, right? When a wrongful death suit only is worth $1 million or $500,000, a person's life is only worth $1 million or $10 million or whatever they decide it's worth, right? It's also your ability to earn and, your all these things to the people that are left. If somebody's has a potential to earn, $50 million and somebody, kills them, well, maybe you can sue them for that $50 million, but do they have $50 million to pay you? How are you going to recoup that money? And so, like, it's just an extraordinary judgment. And Alex Jones has played along with it. And he said all this goofy stuff on his show. And he was, saying these things about his dad. And so the whole thing is just, it's just a shill fest, right? Rudy Giuliani, $148 million for saying that these, workers, hid some ballots or whatever. Mishandled ballots or whatever he said. Like, it's just too much money, right? It's stupid. Like, no one would think that's a reasonable amount of money. And it shouldn't stand up in court. Because if you're going to sue people for, saying something about you on the internet, let's say everybody who has somebody slander them on the internet now gets gets $1 billion or $100 million. Like, the internet's full of slander. Right, like everybody, and full of broke ass people slandering people, right? And so, like, the whole thing is silly. The whole thing, like, it's not a real. This didn't happen in real life. Like, no court would rule something like this. It has to be something that's appropriate to, you can't just make it punitive and make it over the top. And then Alex Jones going along with this and then playing the victim and doing all these things. I mean, it's just an absolute mess. Okay, so this is from CNN. Alex Jones forced to liquidate assets and pay families of Sandy Hook victims. It was Alex Jones' idea again, I don't know the intricacies of the whole thing. But there's no such thing as debtor prison, which I'll talk about later, right? The Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting was a mass shooting that occurred on December 14, 2012 in Newton, Connecticut, United States, when 20-year-old Adam Lanza shot and killed 25 people. 20 of the victims were children between 6 and 7 years old, and the other 6 were adults and staff members. So they've put this under what they consider, or what they call about authoritative news. Because Alex Jones is being Alex Jones outside the courtroom very briefly for CNN. So this is Jake Tapper's.
Today, a major step towards the families of Sandy Hook victims finally getting at least some of the money legally owed to them by right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. A judge clearing the way.
See, that you can call someone right-wing conspiracy theorist, right? As a news person. Like, that isn't slander. Like, that isn't, like, the whole term conspiracy theorist is okay to say it to people. Because it represents, like, the way the mainstream media and many politicians and, so many people say conspiracy theorists. it's like you're a scum of the earth, right? Because you believe that people conspire. And again, I'm not protecting Alex Jones. He's a piece of poop. Alex Jones sucks. He's hurt all of us, and he's a shill, and he's just the worst of the worst. But to call somebody that, right, because this is what we're talking about, slander. What we're talking about is slandering people. We're talking about protected groups. We're talking about people, who are protected on YouTube, right? The Sandy Hook victims are protected on YouTube. They're protected in social media. And conspiracy theorists, you can say anything about conspiracy theorists or an anti-vaxxer or somebody, right? It's the same behavior. In fact, even worse, because you're demonizing a group of people. This is the way they've chosen to handle all of these, anybody going against the official story.
The way
And Alex Jones has helped them by sucking, right? And being a shill and, being a part of it.
Jones to liquidate his assets. Jones owes more than nearly $1.5 billion after being found liable for defaming Sandy Hook families, spreading lies about the 2012 massacre on his InfoWars media platform, claiming the shooting was staged, which it was not, and families and first responders were crisis actors, which they were not.
Why do you have to say that? It was staged, which it was, they were not, and crisis actors, which they were not. Why do you have to say that, right? Like, is that how stupid you think your audience is, that they all believe what you believe, right? Like, just listen to that again. It's bizarre to say that as a reporter. Like, this is how bad CNN is.
12 massacre on his InfoWars media platform, claiming the shooting was staged, which it was not, and families and first responders were crisis actors, which they were not. Those families were subsequently harassed by some deranged fans of Alex Jones. Personal information, doxed online. The situation so bad, one family forced to move, as CNN's Hadass Gold reports.
So that's worth $1.5 billion, right? You understand, like, what he's saying the outcome was. Like, Alex Jones' stupid fans are saying, again, maybe not even his fans, because this was said by so many people in the truth community, said the same thing. Even they went in much harder than Alex Jones, and he wasn't the first. And so why did they pick him? Well, because he's a shill, right? Because, this is, it's all about them controlling the whole thing with an extraordinary judgment against him, right? Those people who harassed the people should be punished, either, legally or criminally. You shouldn't harass people. I've said over and over again, like, it's not, you don't have to do anything to the system, right? The system is collapsing on its own. You don't have to do anything to it. And so you shouldn't harass people. Like, it's just bad. Online, any of this stuff. Leaving hostile comments. That's why I read hostile comments all the time. People are harassing me, right? And so, like, not that I'm a victim, but, like, you're going to get it. Like, you're going to, if you say things like that, whatever it is, harassing things, unnecessary things, which I'm going to get into when I read comments later, right? Like, you deserve whatever you get, right? Because there's no reason to say things like that to people. It's all about belief wars. Like, you can't change people's beliefs, so why are you even, people want to debate, people want to, I have this guy whining that I wouldn't allow him to leave critiques of my videos. And, like, he wrote this long whining critique of that, like, and leaving the channel, and then went and posted another comment on another channel in the same whiny little way. Like, it just doesn't work. You want to dump on other people. Everyone wants to dump on somebody else, right? And so that's, that is whatever it is. But it isn't worth $1.5 billion, right? Like, it's silly.
The financial situation for Jones likely means the end of his media empire built on lies.
Alex Jones's InfoWars conspiracy empire facing its final day.
Conspiracy empire.
This is probably the end of InfoWars here very, very soon.
A bankruptcy judge in Houston has approved the liquidation of Jones's personal assets, while also considering liquidating the parent company of his notorious media brand, all to help pay the nearly $1.5 billion settlement he owes the Sandy Hook families.
Boy, they look very sad over there. Very sad. Why are they so sad when they're about to get $1.5 billion?
$120 million.
Jones was found liable for defamation and emotional distress for his lies about the
Emotional distress. Now, the emotional distress, I mean, the defamation is, there's standards, there are precedents for what defamation does. Like I said before, there's standards for it. Emotional distress also, like how much is emotional distress worth, right? And so there were people who covered this all the time. There were people, I watched videos when this was going on, right? Those videos are all gone. A lot of those people aren't making videos anymore. But they said all these horrible things about these people, right? Worse than Alex Jones did. And it was, kind of widely accepted in the truth community that it was believed about these things, right? And Alex Jones said a few things here and there, after the fact. Like it wasn't his, I don't know how much, like all the things that I've seen that they've showed clips of him saying are mild compared to other things that were being said. A lot of the people who were talking about this did not like Alex Jones and were not fans of his. And, it was just this consensus about this event, right? And the other events that followed. And there was evidence presented and all these things, right? And, this, it was more than just Alex Jones, right? It was what the truth community believed. And what you believe about something and what you say about something when it's your opinion, again, it's limited to what you could call something slander, right? And just the way the internet is. Like the internet is full of people's opinions about other people, right? And so, these are, it's just like a huge settlement for something that the whole internet is this, right? It's like the stuff that they're saying Alex Jones did.
Massacre that left 20 first graders and 6 educators dead in 2012. In the wake of the Newtown, Connecticut shooting, Jones told his audience the massacre was a so-called false flag operation staged by the government and that the grieving parents were actors. An attorney for some of the family...
She made it sound like that's the worst thing you could ever say about people. People all are liars and actors. People fake things, fake emotions, right? Say things that are untrue. Right? Every person's lying out there. People lie. That's why people conspire. People do things. It's not like this is unheard of, right? It isn't like there's a term called false flag. It isn't like that's not something that exists. You can be wrong about it, and but again, it's very mild, right, compared to all the stuff that's said about people in the world, right?
Families says this ruling will likely take away Jones's main megaphone.
And that's what I expect to happen. I think InfoWars.
Okay, so all this stuff here. Then this was here. This is something called Court TV.
We were expecting that he was going to take the stand today in Connecticut. The defense decided strategically not to put him back on the stand. They're going to wait to bring him back during their case in chief. So he left the courtroom, but he didn't leave the courthouse property. He's standing outside, as he has been doing throughout this proceeding, and talking to the media. Let's go and check in.
So this is basically as rigged as you can get. And they also keep accusing me of making money off Sandy Hook. I don't make money off of any of the stories we cover. We have the show we do, then we have ads that air, just like any other show on radio or TV or cable. That's a fraud. This law firm, Democrat Party, high-powered ambulance-chasing law firm, Chris Manny and the rest of them, know that they just got a $73 million settlement with Remington. They've won a bunch of other big lawsuits.
So apparently they won with Remington, the gun manufacturer. So like this is, these shootings end up being big money then if that's the case. Now again, I don't know because Alex Jones sucks. I'm not going to look it up. I don't care. But I said this before. If you're going to sue people for, these events, well, the gun manufacturers would totally be sued, and there's protection for them. Now, why would, Remington, we can look this up. It's a $73 million settlement, right? And so if you're saying the gun is responsible, like this is a whole debate, right, amongst gun-owning people. If you're saying the gun is responsible, people kill people, guns don't kill people, right? Guns kill people, people don't kill people. I don't know what the opposite of that is. But if you're saying the gun manufacturer is responsible, then every time somebody is shot, the gun company should be sued, and there'd be no more gun companies, right? So $73 million lawsuit. And so what they're saying is the gun that killed these children, I mean, that's the official story. That's their story. The gun that killed these children is responsible for $73 million of damages, 25 children, the parents, grieving parents, all of it, right? Emotional suffering, all the things that are tied to that. Wrongful death, that the gun manufacturer is responsible for that. And so, I don't know the intricacies of the case and all those things, but that's what they're saying. And so $73 million is a lot less than $1.5 billion. That Alex Jones said 3 or 4 things. He's a performance artist, and he's goofy, and again, he's a shill, so he went along with it, and he played into this thing. He leaned into it. And still playing the victim and still, doing damage to the truth community as he spews out his goofiness, right? But, the difference between the physical act of the kids getting killed is worth $73 million, and that's an extraordinarily high judgment, right? I don't know what that is per kid, 25 times, that's like $3 million per kid. And so, a little less than that. And so they're attributing the loss of life, and they're saying the gun manufacturer is responsible for what percentage, right? Because that kid was on psychological meds. Did they sue Big Pharma? The official story, that guy was was a psych patient, right? And so, it's known. So they say here, Adam Lanza did take antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication for a short time in 2007. We know a lot of these violent acts. This is from Yale, the Yale News. School shooter treated at Yale, which is right by the place, right? And Yale is just very controversial, the stuff they do. And a prescription of Celexa, a common antidepressant. So, fatigue, lack of energy or sleepiness, digestive issues, and these are just their mild symptoms. Insomnia, trouble sleeping, which causes mental breakdown, right? Insomnia is really, prevalent when people make bad decisions, right? When you just think about being tired all the time and not getting enough sleep. Those of you who suffered insomnia know. Anxiety or feeling agitated. Suicidal thinking and behavior symptoms include thoughts of harming yourself, worsening depression and anxiety, feeling agitated or irritable, easily upset or frustrated, aggressiveness, behaviors or feelings that aren't normal for you. So then all these bad withdrawal symptoms, right? Brain fog, so all these things are contributing factors. So let's say you say Celexa, the company that made the pharmaceutical, that played a role. And they would say those things play a role in all these things. How many people are on medication or some kind of alcohol and drugs and make bad decisions when they're, think about all the bad decisions that are made when people are on these kind of drugs and the side effects. And so Remington, $73 million, how much is Alexa responsible for in terms of the deaths of these kids, right? The official story. And so if you're going to break down blame, you can't blame it all on the gun because you have to also blame it on, what about Yale University and the psychiatrists that are treating some kid, and he's on medications that are, causing him to have this potential behavior, right? And so, if you think about all the different factors involved, it's really hard to attribute blame. But even with that, whatever they were going to say was wrongful death, the cause of the kids dying, that's far less than the $1.5 billion that this schmo is, this shill is, allegedly having to pay, right? The whole thing is ridiculous.
Suits for these families. And I would imagine in 30 years, this law firm will be suing people with the Sandy Hook families. I mean, somebody of their great-great-grandchildren may be suing people over this. They have sued basically dozens and dozens of different organizations and groups, and it never ends. When the real person that killed the children was Adam Lanza. People don't know Adam Lanza. Most people don't know Adam Lanza. When people walk up to me and say, you shouldn't be covering Sandy Hook, I haven't talked about it in years. I've said it happened years ago, apologized 4 or 5 years ago. They say, stop.
Why do you do that? Why do you apologize? He said all these things were false flags. Again, why did he reverse his defense was not he didn't do something wrong. He had the right to question something. It was that he stopped talking about it and he didn't care about it, and these other things, right?
Stop talking about it. Stop making money on it. It's not me making money. They made $73 million off of this, and now they've got these huge judgments in Texas against me. It's absolutely preposterous.
Super quick, how do you feel about your testimony yesterday? If you feel like sharing that with us?
Well, the main reason I'm
Okay,
not...
so this is Alex Jones, doing more damage because of just the way he is, and all of it, right? The anatomy of a shill. In America, there's no such thing as debt or prison, and so you can't have these extraordinary rulings and basically cripple people and say the damages are so extreme that you can never make money again, right? Because he has no incentive to pay it or do whatever. They can move money around. Whatever they end up doing to delay the payment. It's just, no one would think this is a reasonable settlement, right? And so he has to go along with it to whatever he's doing to make it work. Like he has to be like a part of it, which we already know he's a part of it for all the other stuff he's done. And then it's, all these extraordinary other things that have happened with Trump and Rudy Giuliani and even the Hunter Biden, 25 years for nobody getting hurt, right? Bad decisions. Like he got lucky, Hunter Biden got lucky because someone should have gotten hurt, but they didn't. People did get hurt from his crack use and things like this. But in terms of his gun issues, 25 years, and again, I don't know how many years he's going to get, but that's the maximum. And, it's extraordinary. And all these things involve guns, like at least the Alex Jones thing and the Hunter Biden thing. But it's just, the whole thing's bizarre. All right, let's get into the Trump evangelical stuff here. Okay, so this is Marjorie Taylor Greene, and, she's really stupid. And she says stupid stuff. It's kind of her thing, right? She said something stupid here. This is probably the stupidest thing she said. Down here it says, Dr. Phil says TikTok banned his promo video with President Trump. I want to get to Dr. Phil's video, like I have it somewhere, his interview with Trump, and Trump says this is like a therapy session. It's bad. I saw just a little bit of it, and I've been waiting to cover it, but I've had other things that are more pressing. I'm not going to cover it in this. I'm going to probably cover it next time because that's a totally separate thing. But here she says this.
The Democrats and the fake news media want to constantly talk about, oh, President Trump is a convicted felon. Well, you want to know something? The man that I worship is also a convicted felon.
Woo!
And he was murdered on a Roman cross.
Boom. Jesus was also, so her position is convicted felons are holy, saintly people. She's comparing Trump to Jesus and calling Jesus a convicted felon. I don't think they had felonies in ancient Rome, but, you get her point there. But this was something that I had seen, I saw it. I was eating breakfast or something. I turned maybe over the weekend before this came out. And there was a news report, which I can't find. There's other things like it, where these evangelical pastors are comparing Trump to Jesus and really propping him up, right? Let me just go through some of this other stuff here. Jesus is their savior. Trump is their candidate. Jesus is an evangelical savior, and Trump is their candidate. Blasphemy of comparing Trump to Jesus. Comparing Trump to Jesus and why some evangelicals do it. The biblical story of right uses to defend Trump these things. The pious one, Trump. Here's the Time magazine article. Blasphemy of comparing Trump to Jesus Christ. And this is happening.
Jesus is my savior.
Like, Trump is not a Christian, and he does not believe in God. And I saw Trump before he was a presidential candidate and since then, and there's nothing that he said that would indicate, and there's nothing that he's done that he even believes in God, right? I'll show you some other things. They cover this in Morning Joe. He's not a godly. Sure, God's guns and Trump. Why not? Because God wanted guns, God wants Trump, and you want the T-shirt, right? So there's that.
Everybody went against him because he was preaching love and doing what was right for the people. And Trump's doing what's right for this nation, and because he's doing that, everybody is against him.
Is that a political?
Is everybody or just some people in power and some, like he's got a lot of support too.
Political rally or a?
All right, so they have these videos, right? And these Christians, they had actually some preachers, like I said. I can't find that show, but you get it, right?
Was his reaction. He was asked, what's your relationship with God? He said, I do good with evangelicals. Asked about his prayer life. He says, people come to him and say, sir, I pray for you every night. Yeah. Proving an extraordinary ability to sound clueless after all these years.
So your guy, I showed you Joe Biden at the Juneteenth celebration dancing. Joe Biden, is, the human version of Clueless. Like, if Clueless was a human, it's Joe Biden, right? The guy is pooping his diapers. He's staring, he's just gone. And so, Trump is clueless in his way, but not as bad as Biden. Like, you can't use the word clueless if you're supporting. If being clueless is something that you're against, then you can't support Biden, right?
On the most basic questions of faith, and what's your relationship with God, and talk about your prayer life for two of the most basic questions. Join us now, NBC News National Affairs Analyst John Heilman. He's a partner and chief political columnist at Puck. I know he and his former partner Mark Halperin also asked Donald Trump some questions about faith in 2016.
Boom.
New Testament or Old Testament? And his answer was both. What's your favorite Bible verse? Equal. What's your favorite Bible verse? Oh, I don't want to talk. And David Brody at CBN asked him if God's forgiven him, and he said, well, I don't pray to God for forgiveness.
So, these are, as bad as Gumby Joe is, this is an accurate description of Trump's relationship with God. That he is pandering to Christians. If you're a Christian and you think Trump's a Christian, come on. If you're a God, if you're a God person, if you're a person that puts any effort into a relationship with God, you got to see that Trump isn't that. Neither is Biden. No matter what they say, and Trump sucks at talking about it. Trump hawking a Bible is like blasphemous. They're not godly people. So these guys show Marjorie Taylor Greene here.
We're here in Sunset Park to worship and bring back the greatest president we've ever known in
to worship and bring back the greatest president.
Our generation.
So what do you think when you hear rhetoric like that?
I don't even know what to think, John. Look, I'm not going to speak for the American people, but I think that rhetoric speaks for itself.
Okay, your voice is horrible. You guys are just appalling, like you're repulsive. Trump is too arrogant and he's just the kind of guy that he is. He does not believe in God, and he doesn't pray. Maybe in some desperate moments like everybody else, some desperate situation, and then people acknowledge a higher power because they're freaked out and they pray or whatever. But Trump is not a religious or spiritual person. And he's a narcissistic prick, and he's done so much damage, during his presidency to all these things. And he's, a person without values and banging porn stars and cheating on his wife. And, he's just a scumbag, right? And he always was. Cheating poor people, cheating hardworking people out of money, vendors and people, screwing them on deals. This is what Trump's known for. And that's who he is. And he's, hoodwinked all these people who really believe in Trump and are passionate about him, because they're all kind of desperate because America is, going into a more and more demonic state. And there's no solution for it. And they're hoping that someone will come along and save it, and then Trump has sold it to them. And they are, willing to buy anything if they're willing to buy Trump as a spiritual person and compare him to Jesus. He's just not. It's just not there. And just shows you what's wrong with everything. Trump being compared to Jesus is like everything that's wrong with everything in the world. So let me, I want to go to some comments here. Okay, so I got a few comments I want to get to. One has to do with my channel. and it's a comment from the YouTuber Really Graceful, who, I don't watch other truthers, and I've talked about this. I don't want to talk about it here again. Just that I want to have original thought, but I'm glad that there's other truthers out there, because there has to be lots of them, right? It's a kind of a movement that's not together. And I asked all my audience members to recommend channels that I could run ads on that share a similar audience. And Really Graceful and Jimmy Dore and a few others were the number one recommendation. My wife watches Really Graceful. I see a couple of her videos, and her videos are different. I think she makes like weekly videos, a different kind of channel, but maybe similar point of view. And she wrote, "Remember when you could actually get a real, albeit totally hostile person on the phone at YouTube, like 8 years ago, if you had 100,000 subscribers? They don't want us here, 200 per 100,000 views, $200 per 100,000 views. Meanwhile, if you do something AI generated short promotes the brain rot, your promise paid." And this is the part that I wanted to talk about. I'm only 30 minutes into your video, so maybe you offer some other option to this place. But Rumble is kind of a joke, and Twitter had a lot of application limbo for almost a year. Us in application limbo for almost a year, trying to get a subscription feature. And so, her saying that, like, I'm not an innovator technologically. I'm old, and I don't like change, and I just like to make content. Like, I'm not going to crack the code on a new platform. Like, people recommend platforms to me, and I check them out and see if it's something that can work for me. And Rumble Rumble's more for right-wing people, right? Rumble is, whatever it is. And it's, I'll get 200 views for a video. Even if they're monetized, it's no money. And so, I have to figure out where I'm going to go or what I'm going to do. If I go to a subscription-based model where people have to pay for the videos, it's something where, like, I don't see a solution right now for that. And it's not something I'm going to invent. It's not something that I'm going to come up with the best one. Like, I just have to see what other people do. And I don't really know. Like, I don't know where people are going. Rumble isn't, I'm an odd kind of a person in the truth community, because I'm not right wing. I'm not a Christian, right? I'm not, a lot of those things. So, that's the majority of the people in the truth community now. And I'm not a liberal, certainly. I have views with both of these things, doing the meditation. I have a lot of things that bum people out, in the truth community. That's not like them. And it works on YouTube because there's a vast amount of people who can possibly, people like me. There's not so many people like me, right? Like, I'm a minority in the truth community. I represent, my views. The people who are mostly closely associated with my views probably makes up about 1 or 2% of the truth community. And so there's things that people like about me, the humor part. There's people who like the comedy. There's people who are really, into the spiritual stuff. But again, it represents a small percentage of the truth community. And the farther I sort of evolve in my thinking about it all being just an illusion, and it's just all the system collapsing regardless of what we say, it just becomes more and more unpopular what I'm saying. People don't either understand it, or it offends them, or they, whatever. And so there's no platform. Like, as you get into specific platforms, like when you leave YouTube, which is the big one, right? And then you get into specific platforms, there's the other big ones like TikTok, which, you can't get compensated for your work. Twitter, you can't post long videos. They have long form videos for people like Don Lemons, but I don't even know how you get that. I guess you have to, work for this subscription model that Really Graceful was talking about. Like, I don't even know how to do that. Like, I don't know anything about those things, right? And so the big one, Instagool, like, that's not appropriate. You know, TikTok's more for young people, and it's, you know, doesn't feature this kind of content. And so when you get away from YouTube, you would have these specific video platforms. You know, some of them like Twitch and things my son talks to me about. Like, I don't even know them, but they're all specific. They're all specified to certain, you know, points of view, certain demographics, and that's not going to work for me because, like, I need as vast a sort of a big tent as possible of people who, you know, are like me on a spiritual level, resonate with the spiritual message. They feel the energy. They, you know, there's something here for them, and it's a small percentage. You know, the small percentage of people do the Sizemore system. 1 out of 40 people who tried it. You know, this is back, you know, back in the day when I first started. It was 1 in 40. 40 people would start to get one good person to stay. You know, who would get with it. And those 40 people who would start were unusual, who would try the meditation. Most people aren't interested, right? Just to, you know, those 40 people were 40 people out of, you know, one person out of, you know, maybe 300 or 1,000 or something that heard about this meditation would even try it, right? Would even attempt it. Maybe 1 out of 10,000. So, you know, in terms of my point of view, the kind of person I am, the energy that I resonate, and all of it, you know, and I'm not you know, I don't try to be likable. You know, I guess a little bit I do. You know, I sell myself a little bit here. But I'm just not good at it. I'm not good socially. You know, I'm not a rah-rah person. I'm not, you know, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, you know, all these things. And so there isn't a platform that really speaks to my audience and me. And it's just, you know, unless I just go to a subscription-based model, and that's just, you know, for financial reasons. And then I just have the audience I have until, you know, that just wears out or whatever. So those are the, you know, the options right now as I contemplate my future with YouTube. There's another conversation I want to get to. It's kind of hilarious with 2 different people, one claiming not to be a bot, both emailing me during the same conversation. One called Christian and the other called Mary. And Mary keeps on showing up and saying, I'm filling in for Christian, but I write back to her and Christian responds. And so it's like they're bots, and the Christian says he's not a bot. It's a whole hilarious thing. And so, you know, I want to cover more of that. You know, the whole thing is kind of goofy and kind of funny. And so the next piece to this is, the next comment here was a person, I got to make these bigger. My eyes are not good today. In general, I have to make it bigger because I'm old. AI Bot says, YouTube does not gaslight or shadow ban, but truthers not welcome. So to that video, which is the same video really graceful replied to. Wow, I used to listen to your channel. So this person has a kind of a weird name that would indicate that they were African American. Wow, I used to listen to your channel. You were always telling your truth, which is a half-truth and a whole lie. You know, and I'm reading this comment for what I said earlier. There's no reason for a comment like this because some people like my content and some people don't. And you're welcome to not like it. You know, you're welcome to talk about it on your thing or whatever. But why to tell me about it? Like, burden me with your opinion that I'm not interested. I'm not asking for your opinion about my content. I'm not looking for feedback. You know, some people are. And you know, if I'm not, you know, begging people for compliments or, you know, if you feel like I've helped you and you want to leave a comment, that's great. I appreciate it. You want to open your heart and feel like, you know, express something, some gratitude, because I'm a big gratitude person. You know, I always think gratitude is good. But if anything else, don't bother, right? Because, like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do here until I can't do it anymore, right? And, you know, I'm changing and evolving on my own. And so your critique isn't, you know, your opinion doesn't affect me, especially when your opinion comes from a level of lower understanding. Like, you don't have the capacity to understand what I do here, right? And, you know, most of these comments come from that. Like a complete misunderstanding of me and the channel. So it says, you were always telling your truth, which is a half-truth and a whole lie. Rarely did you address the transatlantic trade or how your forefathers got the land from the original copper-colored people. Okay, so a couple of things here. I don't even know what the transatlantic trade is, so I never address it. Like, I don't, that's not what I cover here. I cover a lot, and I can't cover everything. And I talk about the system being, the whole system's corrupt and the whole whatever it is. But this part, and how your forefathers got the land of the original coppered people. See, this is a problem that you have with a lot of these people. It's not all African American people that lump all white people. Like, white people don't get along with each other. But my forefathers did not acquire the land from the original copper-colored people. My grandparents all immigrated here after, late, in the 1900s. My grandfather came from Germany, which wasn't responsible for, it was England, France, and Spain that conquered the Native American people, right? And there's a funny kind of part of this too. But first of all, this is a false statement. This part where he says, the transatlantic trade, how your forefathers, no, they're not my forefathers, right? And it might be your forefathers. Because if you're an African American person with white skin, it's more than likely that the people who were so-called colonizers, that are called colonizers, were, my ancestors, there wasn't colonizers in Germany. Ireland wasn't colonizers. There's Irish people that were part of the British. Some of the Irish people were indentured servants, which was just another form of slavery, right? And so the Irish people were conquered by the British people. And so again, not that I identify with any of these things, because I barely, I don't have much contact with my ancestors. And Albanians were, Albania is one of the poorest countries that's constantly getting invaded, and the government, Albania is just a mess, the little I know of it. And Albanian people are somewhat dark-skinned. And Sicilian people are certainly dark-skinned. And I am copper-colored. Like right now, I'm literally copper-colored. There's this old guy down the street from me. My wife and I pass him, and he rides a lawnmower. He mows the lawn of a church nearby. I think he mows other people's lawns. And I think his health has failed because we don't see him this year as much. And he sits outside and gets tan. And he's a white guy that we've called Mr. Brown because he's, got brown skin. And he's really always working on his tan. And I always have a good tan. Like, I always feel better when I'm tan because of the vitamin D factor. And I certainly look better. But, as much as I care about that. And so my wife was teasing me about me and Mr. Brown being in a competition. And, we're in this competition without him knowing about it. And, he's on hard times. He's really old. He's hunched over. He's on the lawnmower. He's 90 or something. But the thing is, when you talk about people as a group, all white people are colonizers, well, that's not true. There's many European countries and people from different ethnicities, and people are all different. And, for people who complain about being marginalized and viewed as a whole, that's something that comes out of the people in the African American community that complain about these things, right? You don't want to start doing that with other groups of people. And for me, I don't fit in with almost anybody. There's a small percentage of people who I resonate with, and people who, there's people like me in every demographic. And, people who really get what I do here and, see beyond the superficial stuff and this, for the spiritual messages and feel the energy and whatever. It's a small percentage of people. And those are the people I make videos for because we're an underrepresented demographic. Maybe our souls come from the same place, or we've had, the same kind of level of past lives and connections, whatever it is, right? But there's certain people that resonate with what I do here. And again, a small percentage. And that's the people on a soul level that I'm concerned about, which is beyond any of these goofy little things that people say about, demographics, these things that this person's talking about here. And so let me bring this back up to comment. And so forefathers got this land from the original copper-colored people. I'm literally copper-colored right now. By the way, where are they? Where are all the original people who didn't need SPF 1000? I put oil on. I don't need like any sunblock. Like, and I go, I mean, you know, even when I'm like in Florida or something, sometimes I put sunblock on my shoulders. But other than that, it's like I put whatever when I go out in the sun. So, you know, I don't need SPS 1000. So that's like a, you know, a prejudicial statement. And categorizing me as so you've already like, you're just wrong about this and you've made it about the color of people's skin instead of, you know, like it's just goofy. By the way, where are they? You know, I talk about Native Americans and how I had a connection with them. You know, the third master of the Sajmark system had memories of Native American past lives. And I certainly had Native American past lives. In fact, I think I've had past lives as probably every race, just based in, you know, I have a connection with the, you know, African American community. There was a time in my life when I played basketball, where I would say 50% of my friends and social system was black people, right? And so, like, and I, you know, I felt like in some ways more comfortable when I went to the, you know, basketball court or when I was around black people than I was around white people. And there was a thing where there was these, I waited tables, and there was these black guys I work with. I think, you know, a couple of them were gay or whatever. And they were talking about me like I wasn't there, that I, you know, that people were prejudiced against me because of the way I look, because I look very ethnic. And that I wasn't even aware of it. And I'm like, I'm aware of it. Like, you know, like they were saying white people were prejudiced against. Like I didn't fit into the, you know, that I wasn't. Because, you know, when my father went to college, he was very Italian looking. And he had two Jewish friends, like, you know, whatever it was, that he still had years later. And they were put together because they were, you know, they were ostracized by everyone else. My dad suffered prejudice for being ethnic looking and Italian, because Italians and Irish were considered like dirty immigrants. You know, Italian and Irish people were considered what, you know, they say about Mexican people now, and Hispanic people. They were not welcome, right? The way they treated Chinese people. Like there's, you know, there's a battle between Irish and Chinese people. There's a TV show about this, right? Because there was just these groups of people that were considered less than. And my ancestors were considered less than, right? Because it's all this kind of goofy stuff, right? Where people want to make themselves feel better because of their ancestry and their genetics, when it's your soul that matters. It's the quality of your soul. And most people's souls are remedial. They're newbies. They haven't entered on the spiritual path, and they're, you know, not that I'm looking down on them, that's just the case. And this kind of comment is an indicative of that, right? There's no soul consciousness here. The chosen originals are only ones still here. There are some copper-toned originals still living in remote areas in Australia, etc. Never spoke much about bondage trade, Jim Crow, redefining 40-acre reparations. I can't blame your ilk. So this person, you know, is talking in a way that they can get away with because of the way that, you know, this victim consciousness thing's gone. You know, you can't say stuff like this. Like, white people can't say this kind of stuff to black people. You know, I don't care about it. It's not offensive to me. But it's just a remedial comment, right? It's limited based in just the most superficial aspects of people. It's a scientific fact that the less melatonin you have, the less compassion, and the more Wedico you have. This whole thing has been rigged by the most high God. It's all written in the books, all of it. Shadow ban forever, LOL. Hashtag. You know, just, again, just a very remedial comment because of the, you know, the limitations of the person's focus on something that's not important. Like, it's the quality of your soul that matters. And that's what I cover here. And I don't even care about the issues, because the issues are, like, all people suck. And, you know, I talked about this. I was always compassionate to the Native American people, and I've always had a connection with the African American community because of, you know, playing basketball and these things, right? And, you know, it helped me when I was the only white guy on the court, which happened quite frequently. And I went to urban areas to play basketball. You know, recognize, because I always felt uncomfortable around white people as well, even more so, which was a weird thing. But I always felt comfortable around, African American people. And that opened up me going to India and being the, one of the few white people in India or whatever it is, right? Like I was able to go into places, everywhere I go, people look at me like I'm different. Maybe because the way I look, just my expressions. I mean, people do not react to me like, oh my God, I want to get to know that guy. Like like people say that I'm intimidating to people, though, just the way I look and things like that. My friends said that, I used to be able to talk smack on the basketball court because people were kind of just scared of like the way I look, right? Which is not, I'm not a monster, right? But, I mean, I don't know how people receive me on the other end. I have a soft heart and, I'm not, whatever. But, there was some level of that. People judge you for your appearance or whatever it is. But I was able to fit in different places and feel comfortable in different places and also uncomfortable, depending on the day or depending on the circumstances. But I was able to go from one demographic to another. I can, I mean, the good thing about my personality, I've known a lot of different kind of people. There's a lot of gay people I work with in restaurants, and then I went to a liberal, new age sort of master's degree counseling program, and there was just all these liberal. Some of them were gay, some of them were just, feminist. But in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where there's demographics there, I work with a lot of Mexican people, Hispanic people there, and I knew a lot of Puerto Rican people, friends, Puerto Rican people who were, whatever it was. Like I just had a diversity of, the experience. And, what I've found is in all these different groups of people that are based in, race or ethnicity, there's only a handful of people who, in each group that are like me, small percentage, that are like me. Like, I view them as, they're like me. And it's a soul-based thing, right? And those of you who stick here, who feel it, you're those people. Like, and it's a small, that's why I need a lot of, I have to go through a lot of different viewers of all different demographics because, I'm not a definable characteristic, a definable person. But anyways, the person left a second comment here. Let me see. So this is to the Alex Jones video. No, it's the same one. All my comments have been blocked by your channel because you don't want to discuss the bondage trade over 400 years ago. No, I don't know if I blocked you before, but I'm blocking you now because you're like, you're doing something I've told you not to do, which is want me to hear your complaints about me. Like, I don't want to be nagged. I'm not going to be nagged or I'm not going to be complained about. I don't have a complaint department. It's one of my, primary things. These are your complaints, right? These are, complaints about me that I told you I don't want to hear them. You're completely entitled to your opinion, and everyone should be looking at my stuff critically. I don't expect people just to pander to me or, praise me, whatever it is. Like I'm not looking for any of that. Like I don't care. Like my opinions are my opinions. They're not going to be affected by anybody else because it comes from an internalized place in my spiritual journey. Of course, I'm going to be affected by my experience and things like that, but I don't learn through debating people and listening to their opinions, right? Like I get it from the inside, which is the Saj Marg way. The second master system, Babaji, when he was a young man, stopped reading philosophers and religious texts and all these things and was able to connect directly to the source. And it is, his teachings and his understanding of the spiritual world is unparalleled. And he had a, incident where he was, I guess they gave him ether or something for like an anesthesia, and it wiped out some of his long-term memory. So like he was but he got everything. When he was asked a question, he would go directly to the source. If somebody asked him a question about Jesus, he'd intercommune with Jesus or whatever. You can believe it or not, but his revelations in the spiritual world are like they stand above anything else that's ever been here on planet Earth. His breakthroughs in terms of spiritual discoveries, and his ability to connect directly to source, the Ethernet and get information. And, I'm not like that, but I strive to be like that. So that's how I handle this. And, my record of being right on things is it's a high level of efficiency because of that. because you don't want to discuss the bondage over 400 years ago. I don't even know what you're talking about. Or the concurrent second-class annex that are still going on today. Our boots, everything else, have been taken from us, so we can't pull up the straps. But you and your ilk, like who are my ilk who are these ilk that you speak of? Still can't give a damn about anyone who has melanin. That is called Wedico, and the copper-colored originals here on Turtle Island coined that back then. Palm-colored mutant scientists know the need for dark matter, aka melanin, in order not to have disease called Wedico. Google it. Again, I got a nice tan. I'm rocking a nice tan. I'm copper-colored, bronze. You know, people who lived in Sicily, it's right near Africa, right? You know, I have good leaping ability. I won dunk contests. I was a good physical athlete. My family is good physical athletes. And, you know, I come from whatever genetic makeup there's there. But in terms of my, you know, and I'm not like my family members. I mean, my brother does the meditation, but, you know, we have similar personalities, but, you know, he had less ability to feel the transmission that was given in the Sajmark system. But any old who, you guys get the gist of this thing. So I just want to add one more thing. I think I didn't say this, but, you know, if it's repetitive, it's repetitive. But I realized a couple years ago, because I read Howard Zinn's, I mean, when I finally graduated, my third attempt to get my bachelor's degree in human services, well, eventually human services, I you know, majored in other things in my first two attempts at college. But it was a liberal university that used critical thinking, which really helped me, you know, finding your own voice. And it was a weekend class for adults, and, you know, it was kind of an interesting school. And the centerpiece was Howard Zinn's and other books like that talked about, you know, the people's version of the history of the United States. Now, for truthers, Howard Zinn is, you know, whatever he is, if you've read this book, but it's kind of an interesting book from the perspective that it was written not by the conquerors, not by the people who won these wars and, you know, who colonized these places, but by the oppressed people. And, you know, I'm interested in that point of view, which, of course, you know, I talk about a lot. I used to talk about it a lot more. But when I realized that the Native American people took slaves, and they were constantly at war with each other, the different tribes, and were conquering each other, again, not to the extent of the English people and the European people, but also the black people, the Africans, took slaves and sold those slaves to white people. The slave trade involved black people enslaving their own people and selling them to white people. That's how that, you know, was successful. And so when you understand that all these different groups of people around the world, there's been slavery. There was slaves in the Mahabharata in India. There's slaves in every, you know, country, every demographic, every group of people. In their history, there's slavery. And then other things like that. There's, you know, all these atrocious crimes, abuse and human sacrifice and all kinds of things, every religion, all these things. And so to blame one group of people who were just better at it, you know, the Europeans developed war strategies and war technology better than any of these other groups. And so they were just better at it. And you can say that, you know, that's not a good thing. No, it's not. But it's, you know, why they won, right? They won at something bad. Like war shouldn't exist, abuse shouldn't exist, but it does. And to say that one race is more responsible than others, well, yeah, one race is kind of better at it, but it's not all white people. It's specific groups of white people that have been better at it, you know, than the other groups, at least for now. But to categorize it as a racial problem, it's not. It's a human problem. It's something that humans do. Humans take slaves, humans abuse each other, humans are, you know, deviant, murderous, you know, rapists, you know, pedos, all these things, right? Human beings engage in horrific behaviors and hateful behaviors. Human beings hate and have anger issues and violent issues and, you know, just issues with corruption and lying and going against God's will and all these things. And we all have that in us that we have to, you know, find a way to evolve out of that, right? To, not suppress so much, but get rid of those tendencies and embrace our higher nature. We all have a saint within us. We all have a higher nature. And I'm one of the few people that talk about the higher nature and how we can, evolve past the lower nature, which I covered in all these people, whether it be Alex Jones or Alec Baldwin or Trump or Biden or Hunter Biden. Like, that's just their lower nature. They all have a soul within them. They all have a higher nature. They're just not willing to embrace it. And we all struggle with that. Our egos take over and we get, become pleasure-centered, selfish, entitled people. And we all have to work our way towards eliminating that, or minimizing that part of ourself and embracing the higher nature within. And that's, what's kind of, I think, sets my channel apart. And very few people pick up on that or understand it. Even if they listen to this right now, they don't get it. Because they just want to bitch about some other group and how everyone else sucks but them and their group. And how even if they're bad, the other group is worse. And that's not getting you anywhere. You have one person you can change, and that's you. You're responsible to change one person, and that's you. Everybody else has to do the same thing. You can influence people, but by criticizing them and critiquing them and telling them how bad they suck, that's not going to help them or you. What you do is you work on yourself. You should always be aware that you have to better yourself and evolve into the kind of person that's embracing their higher nature and expanding into a level of consciousness that most humans are scared of and don't even have a chance of embracing because of their limitations. But if you have the ability, then you're held more accountable because you could have and you didn't. There's some people who just can't. They're not there yet. That's at least 60% of the population or more. But for the people who can and won't, like, that's a real tragedy. The people who maybe in the past did and they had a spiritual fall, and won't do it again, and all these things. Like, that's, you have the ability, but you're refusing to do it. And a lot of people in the truth community fall under this category. They want to find fault in the so-called the elite or controllers or whatever you want to call them. They want to find, fault in the various demographics of people instead of, looking at themselves and reaching up and doing what they need to do. Like this, embracing the lower and running away from the higher. And so, I thought it was important for me to add that here. Anyways, I just thought I'd add that, and then I had one more comment to get to here. Is that, like, people who are thinking that they're superior because of whatever the thing is here. Let me see, like, this is a long comment here. I'm not sure what this one was about. I forgot what, but I copied it for a reason. Oh, here, this is about Alex Jones. So this is my video called Alex Jones, Jagged Little Shill starring Alex P. Jones, which is a kind of very creative title because he's very jagged, and it's a song reference, or album reference. The reason you cover Alex Jones is because YouTube approves and probably gets more views than anything else you do. No, like, that's wrong. The reason I cover Alex Jones is because he's a shill, and it's funny, and I have good impressions of him. But I barely ever cover him because he never comes up. And when I did cover him before, YouTube used to yellow the videos because when they first shadow banned him, they wouldn't let clips of him be on YouTube. So, YouTube was pushing back against covering him. But you're saying that YouTube watches my videos and goes, oh, this guy's criticizing Alex Jones. Let's promote his channel. Well, that's not the case. My channel's being shadow banned. And YouTube doesn't watch the videos like that. They have bots that do all that shit, and they're not even good at it. So, like, your comments just, I cover what's there to cover. And I'm covering Alex Jones, like, 3 videos here because it's, newsworthy, and it goes with all this stuff. He probably has been compromised, but people also self-sabotage under pressure. Well, then why are you complaining, you little boop? Like, why are you complaining? Because you just said he has been compromised. So I'm right. So I'm right, but you're still whining. You say I'm right. I called the judge a corrupt boop in court, and that didn't help me. And I logically I knew not to do that, but it was true. He called the judge the B word. There was no hope, so I did it anyways. I will never stop going after her. She's under FBI investigation, so her days of cronyism and corruption might be over. So you took this personally because you behaved like Alex Jones and you didn't like me ragging on him for the behaviors that you exhibited. And now you're writing this comment because you think I've attacked you personally and I have no idea who you are. Like, this is just classic everything, right? When people feel joy or satisfaction or at misfortune or failures of others, it's often referred as Schadenfreude. The term originates from German and encapsulates that complex mix of emotion. The thing is, they could get you. They could go after you for things you said years ago. The government is shutting down farms. You think they'll let you keep your farm? They're not. I don't want that to happen, but I know it will. Well, everything's going to be taken away from all of us because the system's going to collapse. It's not the system going after your stuff. That's a temporary situation. It's the fact that there's, the debt-based system is collapsing, and there is, whatever war things that happen, whatever nuclear incidents that happen, contamination, all of our lifestyles are going to disappear. Like, that's inevitable. I don't know, the time frame for it. But the point is that, either way, this person's saying, like, that I'm, whatever that I'm doing is going after Alex Jones. Alex Jones went after everybody. Like, in truthers, individual truthers. There were people that when Alex Jones was first coming out that he was a shill, they said that they went and talked to Alex Jones and was interviewed by his staff. And Alex Jones promised them that he would put them on his show. And when they, after they gave him all this information, Alex Jones didn't put him on his show. And like a number of truthers said this, like this was, way back in the day, like when, these people almost disappeared. And then he took all their information and presented it as his own, but he did it over the top and he pushed his gold and he pushed his pills because he's a shill, like he's a bad person. He's negatively affected us all. And so this whole thing isn't him going down. It's him, playing out his role. Like, that's what this is being covered by me. I don't care about any of this stuff. I don't care. Like, I don't have some vested interest in Alec Baldwin going to jail or Alex Jones, being whatever happening to him. I don't care about any of it. It doesn't matter to me. I care about one thing, and that's people recognizing the divinity within them, or like that for me. Like, I care about that for me, in my personal spiritual journey, and it's my duty to share that information. And what you do with it is what you do with it. But what I do here isn't significant other than that, because, there's no saving the system. But, again, just the stupidity here. Seems like you know that already, but let's see if you don't buckle under pressure. All that you said, you're my favorite channel. All that said, you're my favorite channel. And I hope you keep covering Alex Jones. See, this is your need to, like, drop shit on me, right? Like, again, this is why you're unwelcome here. Because you just said, all that said, you're my favorite channel, and I hope you keep covering Alex Jones. And what are you even talking about? In fact, you could do nothing but that and save your channel. And so now you want me to cover him and save my channel. It's not going to happen. Because it's YouTube not recommending my channel to other people that's causing the problem. And it's not me covering Alex Jones, because YouTube doesn't care about any of that stuff, right? Their algorithms have been worked in a way so that they can shadow ban us and not call it shadow ban. Because it's the downfall of YouTube. Because without independent content, it's not just truthers. I first heard this from Kyle Dunnigan, who is a comedian. He's a little bit kind of truther adjacent, but mostly just raunchy comedy. And he started showing how much money he was making. And he was getting 100,000, 200,000 views and making like $15 on a video. And so, and partly because of his graphic nature and things that he said. But YouTube is out there getting rid of independent voices because they're pressured to do so. And, their algorithms and their bots put you in categories, and then they just smother you. They cut off your access to their vast audience by not recommending the videos, not notifying people. And that's what happens, right? And so, like, that's inevitable for everybody. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's just, we're all going to be put in categories, and it's not just truthers. So, it isn't like we're just being targeted because we said something against the beastly system or we don't believe in the official story. Because all these people who are getting the thing that I talked about, that, invalid traffic, are, they're, most of those people, all the people I heard from were not truthers. And so, but in general, the thing is that you can always critique people, and everyone thinks it's a God-given right to critique people and criticize them. And you can do that, like, in whatever. Like, I criticize people, whatever. I talk about their failure in terms of being spiritual people. And we're all going to crack under the pressure as the system implodes. Like, we're all going to have to go through it. We're all going to face fear and, shock and things like that when the system we're 100% dependent on collapses, right? But in general, like, what I say here or I cover here is that there is a solution which is connected to the divinity within you, because you're going to go through difficult circumstances in your life. And that's my major point of view here, and people miss that, that there's a solution being given, and there's a method and a system, the Sajmarg method, the Gratefulness meditation that I've channeled, I've put up. And those people who resonate to it, they resonate. And people can do it on whatever level they do it, but at least if they take a step forward, it's going to take multiple lives for most people to evolve into that, where you perceive life through the idea that you're here to experience whatever you experience to move forward spiritually at a soul level. And most people don't even, can't even flirt with that idea. Instead, they just, they focus on the most superficial, silly things. And that's why these comments suck, right? That's why the internet sucks. Because most people are so ego-driven, they take everything so personally, and even when it's not directed at them personally, right? And everyone wants to take a big, giant crap on everyone else, and and what is that doing? Like, that's what humanity's obsessed with. Blaming other people for sucking when they themselves suck, right? Get rid of your suck. Figure out what your suck is instead of, telling me about my suck, right? Because I'm aware of my suck. Like, I'm aware of the things that I have that are, I'm painfully aware of my limitations and, how I could do better. But, I keep on, going forward regardless, right? Because it's not good to beat yourself up. You just, do your best and you find a path and you move forward on it, the real path, your soul's path. And, at least if you're making some progress, it's better than doing nothing at all, which is the majority of people. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.